Filter, and I'm so pleased to be bringing this beautiful discussion to you today. We're talking travel. So before we start, I want you to close your eyes and answer a question in your mind, but God is watching you. If you could teleport to any place in the world right now, where would you go? Don't tell me. It's you and your conscience. Now, the place you chose, if it is in Africa, raise your hand. Look at you people think they're correct. Okay, if it is not in Africa, I will not judge you. Just raise your hand. At least you're honest. I love it. Nice. Okay, that's a good way to enter this. Before we move forward, and I'll tell you why I asked the question, I just want to invite our beautiful panelists this morning. So, make welcome Emeka Okereke to the stage. And next we have Osmane Zolati and Lerato Mogwade. So, as a way of introduction, the three people you see on the stage here are travel storytellers. So when I was asking you about, they're taking over my seat. When I was asking you where you'd like to go, these are people who they have a bird's eye view, I like to say, about the continent. So I'm really looking forward to an engaging conversation with them. So I'm just going to go straight to the point. I'm in Nigeria, we don't waste time. And my first question, I will start with Emeka. You know, you are travel storytellers, which means you get to see the continent on behalf of so many people, and you use your voice to tell people what you've seen on the other side. But it didn't just start anyhow, there was what happened. So my question is, why did you leave home? What was pursuing you? Why did you start the journey?
Okay, so to give you a bit of the context, you are referring to a project I founded in 2009 called the Invisible Borders Trans-African Project. And this is a project that aims to respond to the notion of borders, you know, and how we have been sort of like demarcated in the country. So I was already in Paris for my art school at the Beaux-Arts. When I finished, this was also when we were having really nice, you know, intense conversation about the continent and what to make of it. And I wasn't alone. The likes of, you know, close friends like Asha, the musician, Kudus, the contemporary dancer, who were like, you know, hotheads. You know, Nigerians who showed up in Paris and started speaking French and took over, you know, where, you know, all of, you know. So, but everything keeps coming back to the fact that we don't even know the continent, so we can't really speak about it. In fact, we discovered Africa only by leaving the continent. You know how Nigerians are, they don't know until you know, cross the border. So it led to the Invisible Borders Trans-African Project. I don't know, I just want to, yeah. And so, it was very rudimentary at first. Just wanted to bring photographers, writers, creatives, thinkers, first of all. I have to think about it from the standpoint of thinkers, yeah? Because being an artist is already a given, but we just want to put ourselves on the road. So we started with, you know, photographers in Lagos. So we came together and decided to travel by road from Lagos in Nigeria to Bamako for the Bamako Festival, Photography Festival, 2000.
This was because, like you said, it was just rudimentary at first. You just wanted to know.
Yeah.
So that was your why?
Yeah, it was, well, yeah. And then we just took off. But then we were like, you know, storytellers, yeah? But we were armed with the camera and the potency of that. And of course, we're discussing media, but we had that freedom that we don't have, we have no mandate. We weren't working for Al Jazeera, CNN. In fact, we made a concerted effort, a very deliberate decision to stay away from those because we want to just be clear and just travel as, first of all, thinkers who want to discover and know the continent for ourselves. And that's the first step. And then we want to know it from this very visceral place, and also we want to write and photograph from that place. So, fast forward to, you know, 10 years into the project, we've done about 10 different editions of road trips. We've traveled, from Lagos to Bamako to Dakar, from Lagos to Addis Ababa by road, from Lagos to Sarajevo in Bosnia and Herzegovina.
That's
So
awesome. Okay.
we spent 4.5 months on the road in 2014, traveling from Lagos in Nigeria all the way to Sarajevo in Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Emeka, I'm going to ask you for more tips later.
Yeah. So
You're going to, yeah, we're waiting. This is exactly what we
so
want.
I just want to show you because the clicker is not working properly. Okay. Alright, so just to give a very quick one, because I know that the scope is very limited.
But how about let's move to Uthmani very quickly, and then we will give you time to share more about your project.
Just one
another
minute.
question.
Let me just show you all, and then
He's very
then we're
passionate.
done with it. We're done with it, and then we can just stop. It's just 1 minute. So, yeah, I just want to give you a sense of all the participants and everything, and you can now talk. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So I'm going to move to Lerato next. I love what you said, curiosity. You wanted to know about the continent. Lerato, what was your why? Why did you, what inspired this? Why did you leave home?
I've always had wanderlust, and I'm extremely proudly Pan-African. Africa is the beginning and the end of my life. It is how I frame my life. It is what I consume. It is how I identify.
That's it, girl.
So for me, there was never going to be any part of the world that I was going to discover intimately more than Africa. So that was the first one, responding to my wanderlust. The second one was that I used to work as a journalist in South Africa many years ago, and it struck me that the stories I was telling about Africa were not authentic ones. It was not ones that I knew and experienced myself, and I wanted to tell better stories. I used to call it rewriting narratives, and I just simply wanted to write and document Africa for what it is versus for the perception of what it is, particularly from a traveling and adventure point of view, because this continent has always attracted adventurers and travelers, but it's typically mostly white men. It's typically a story told through a very Western and white gaze, which of course exoticizes Africa. Then you just see animals, so certain stereotypes. I just wanted to work against them.
That's awesome. I really love that you pursued your wanderlust, because if not, we wouldn't know the amazing things that you've done. And I will move on to Uthmani, but very quickly, just to drop a quick fact. So Africans make up 12% of global population, yet we are less than 3% of the world's passengers. So that means when you see people who travel, you see they're celebrity. They're part of the less than 3%. So quickly, Uthmani, your story is fascinating, but we just want to hear from you. Why did you choose to leave?
Oh, I was just bored. I didn't know what to do. Sorry. No. So growing up as a kid, I used to watch documentaries and see Africa, like in documentaries, and we see the cliche about, either it's safari, if it's beautiful, or like the other side, the negative side. So growing up as a kid, I was always curious about what's the other side of the mountains. How does it look? Is this the real Africa that we see in the media? And I wanted to discover it with my eyes. And also, growing up in Morocco, we often mistaken for Arabs. So, and that was also one of the motivations to change the stereotype as well. To also change like my friends, my family also about this idea of like we Arabs. But like we have been here for over 1200 years. And so imagine someone from the US, he would never say I'm German. Even like just being there for 300 years. So I don't know, so I wanted to change this idea, this stereotype, and that's why the idea of creating a documentary came in mind. And so that's how it started. I told my mom, by the way, I'm going for 3 months. I told her I'm going to Senegal, and 4 years later in South Africa.
But you kept calling home, I hope.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. I'm just good again with you, Uthmani. So I love that you've talked about like the dissonance in the way you were perceived, African or non-African, as a Moroccan. So how would you say that the narratives, affected your experience of Africa, whether good or bad? What were the things you had to contend with that preceded you?
So as I mentioned, like it's always the same narrative that we always see. And in my case, I planned to do just YouTube videos at the beginning, but then one day I saw like when I traveled my first country, Mauritania and Senegal, and then I found this hospitality of people. I saw like what everything that I was told, it was totally different. Nothing. I've seen probably 2 incidents in during 4 years. That's like the negative thing that I saw. But 4 years it was really everything positive. Diversity, cultures, colors, music, hospitality, humanity, everything. So that's when the idea, I wanted to make it bigger and make a documentary film that's going to be everywhere, film festivals, film platforms, and when we did it, we made it to Amazon Prime, we made it to Showmax, we made it to Canal Plus, and like we won many awards in different film festivals around the world, and that's what I was looking for. I showed the real image with my fresh eyes and the reality to the world.
Wow, that's amazing. So overall, you would say you had a positive experience, contrary to what you had.
99%.
Amazing, amazing. I'm going to move to you, Lorato, because a little bit about your story. You also left home thinking you were going for a few months. You ended up staying how many? So, I guess the same thing. What are the opportunities or challenges that you found on the way as a travel storyteller that might have emanated from narratives, or maybe even not, that you'd like to share with us?
It was so interesting because I still mostly travel solo and I'm a woman. So the biggest negative experiences for me was if you're a woman and you're traveling alone, someone thinks about you get late, which is not the case, right? So it gets very annoying because I'm having this intense moment of my life and I'm meeting a stranger and I'm a storyteller. I'm thinking, goodness, are we getting a story? Am I learning something new? You're just looking in my eyes and wanting to go out on a date, which was extremely annoying. However, I did also start working, using it for my benefit. As you know, visas can be prohibitively expensive. So I would show up at borders in my red lips, and depending on who's manning the station, if they're conservative, I'd keep my cloth on. If they're not, be like, oh, I'm single, and my mother wants grandchildren. But first, let me pass through without a visa. I'll call you when I get to the city. But, and suspicion. In Guinea, I rented, so I'm a very slow traveler. I was supposed to go for 3 months. I went for 5 years, and then when I returned to South Africa, I still kept one foot on the continent. I'm always thinking, where am I going next for a while? And I rented a house, a room in a yard, and this guy, so Diallo, I think, or Diarra, could not believe that I was just traveling. For the sake of traveling, I was 27 when I started. I wanted the time of my life, right? I just wanted to experience everything, not just work, have fun. I love fun. And then he kept on saying, why? What are you doing here? Are you a spy? He wanted to confiscate my laptop, go through my camera. We had a very big fight about it. And I kept on saying, I'm just traveling for the sake of it. And also for me, I feel like one thing that we sometimes do not see about the continent is that it can be the backdrop of everything. It can be the backdrop of the time of your life. It can be your eat, love, pray moment. It can be your gastronomy adventure. There's so much that Africa just has to offer. And to not experience it for me as someone who has wanderlust would have been such a shame. And I encourage all of you to make your next destination African.
Yeah, and then we're going to ask them for tips and tricks and plugs. If you want cheap taxi driver in any city, just ask them. So I'm moving to you, Emeka. I think your story is so interesting because your own wanderlust, so to say, started when you were already in the diaspora. So what would you say were the bottlenecks or advantages that you found on the way traveling as an African?
Well, the thing is this, we've been planning this road trip since 2009, and every time we put it out, because we make open calls, every time that we get on the road, we make open calls and we invite artists, photographers, writers, filmmakers to apply. And oftentimes it comes from this idea of adventure. Oh, I would love to travel Africa. But it's never been that for us, really. It's never been our eat, pray, live, love moment kind of, it's really hard. Remember, in 2000, I would say, I think 12, we're trying to cross from Nigeria into Cameroon. And that road is a Trans-African highway, and it's very important. There are 8 of those roads constructed during the colonial times. They were not constructed to unite Africa, but to, divide it and to extract from it. Okay, so this is very important to understand. Now, with the independence and everything, we inherited those roads. Yeah? And then for us, it became important, and there's something we call Trans-Africanism, which is what we are trying to articulate within the project, the idea of Trans-Africanism, which is taking those roads as metaphor to now use those roads as connecting roads, links, because it wasn't what it was doing. And our crossing from Nigeria into Cameroon was very, very indicative of that. The road was really bad, and we got stuck in the mud for 4 days. 4 days in the mud, and we were sleeping there trying to... Al Jazeera made a 30-minute documentary film of this project, which you can find on YouTube. Check it out yourself. But we insisted, all of us. We had PhD scholars in the car, like Christian Nyampeta. We had Emmanuel Iduma, who is, one of the, renowned writer today, published by Cassava Republic as well. He was in the car. There were many people there, all of us. It didn't matter all we knew. We had to be in that mud, understand it, but also work from that place. That's the nature of traveling through Africa. But at the same time, the work created from that place, that urgency, that immediacy, is visceral, is different from, what we would call, say, the desktop intellectual. And even within the project, we came up with the idea of the roadside intellectual. And so far, that's been our experience. But again, there is all of these other caveats as well, which is, beautiful encounters and all of that. But for the most part, it is convoluted, complicated, and complex.
Wonderful. Not in a good way, sorry, but still wonderful. Thank you so much for bringing that. And I'm just going to ask Othmane very briefly, I know we're doing a celebration, but I think we've come to a place where we're saying there are still conversations to be had. We still need to press forward. Othmane, very briefly, and then Lerato, what's one bottleneck that you don't think people really expect when they're traveling Africa, but then they find and they have to contend with?
Good routes. We also have good routes. That's why I choose to skate across Africa. So I walked for 6 months. I cycled for 1.5 years from Ivory Coast to Mozambique, and I skated from Mozambique to South Africa, across Malawi, Zambia, Botswana, and all these southern countries. Yeah, and why I choose the skateboard is to show the world that, hey, we are in Africa, we have good routes as well that we can skate. So yeah, this is like the things I was planning to show.
Yeah, Lerato, I can already preempt. I know you already talked about visa, but if there are any other tips you can drop on the way, what's one thing that confronted you beyond the gender issues and visa, like you said?
I mean, I had to grapple a lot with the fact that I'm impatient, and everyone in Ghana kept on saying, exercise patience. And I was like, oh my goodness, Africans will be the death of me. Can we live on time? It was so hard because I'm so, like things must live on time. What we said is going to happen must happen. So learning to just like really step back and completely go with the flow was so incredible. And another thing that really happened was getting to experience people. It sounds so cliche to say this about Africans. Everyone always, the spirit of Ubuntu, the spirit of Taranga, we were so kind, so generous. But to truly experience that, particularly in Mali, where you feel unconditional love from strangers and everyone makes it their business to make sure that you are okay. When I lived in Timbuktu, I had a neighbor who was 12 years old, and every time I went to get bread, he'd walk home with me, and he'd start pointing things out to help me learn French. So I'd have to say what a TV was, and I'd have to tell him, aujourd'hui au samedi, today's Saturday, things like that. And that for me is truly what stands out more than anything else. The challenge is, look, I'm a storyteller. If it doesn't kill me, it makes a killer story. So, it's like, oh my goodness, am I stuck for 4 days? Yay, 600 words, I'm gonna make $300. But it's you really just let go and you just go with the flow. And for me, that was such a great gift to self.
Actually, the challenges are the things that makes your journey. Like I see a lot of times when people are watching my documentary, when there is a film screening, I try to watch people's eyes. And then whenever I'm suffering, I have malaria, or I'm stuck in a desert for 5 days, or I'm locked in a jail, people, they can't even blink, let alone looking at a phone. So people, they enjoy these challenges. And whenever something bad happens like that, I'm kind of happy. I'm like, oh, this is a nice, beautiful page on my book.
Yeah.
So yeah, I try to adapt to it.
That's a lovely philosophy. This is a nice, beautiful page on my book. I just wanted to point out two things. I know the topic of this conversation is breaking down borders, but has anyone noticed how they have mostly positive things to share about traveling through Africa? Yes, there are difficulties, but in case you've been wondering, and in case when I asked that question, your destination wasn't Africa, this is proof that you should rethink your answer. This is me marketing Africa. Also, I can be your manager. But yeah, I just want to ask a final question now, and it's also a way I hope that you can encourage any other travel storytellers in the room to say, having the bird's eye view, you've been to multiple countries on the continent. What is that one thing that you would say ties African countries together? What's that thing you found everywhere that if I find out exists in Zambia, I'm going to be like, oh my God, are we sisters? What's that thing that pulls us together? Let's start with you, Emeka.
First of all, Bimbola, I think there is a little bit of a concerted, almost contrived effort to actually paint a positive, romantic picture of traveling through Africa. And I insist that it is not true. It is not entirely true, and I think it's so important that we stop doing ourselves this disservice of always trying to shove things under the rug. The beauty actually itself is to engage and be part of that process. Like he said, it is true that the challenges can actually, make you stronger. And in fact, we always have that resilience in us. We can make that challenge, it can make us stronger, but it doesn't in any way mean that it's, we have a lot of artists who come to us because of that. And we go through a lot of pains to explain to them, first of all, that this is not a walk in the park. It's not a picnic. That's not the kind of travel we're making. And even after that, we still fail because it's those kind of artists who come and mess up the whole thing, because the moment they find one challenge, they begin to go inwards and subscribe to that self that they carried. But the road is about opening yourself to those challenges and allowing yourself to grow through it. Africa is beautiful, but it is not in the way we are trying to paint it. It is in engaging it. It is having an open mind and allowing yourself, to self-actualize through that process. So this is something that I want to say clearly, and I think that given that we are coming to the end, that should be my last statement, actually.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up. Essentially, I think we definitely need that balance in terms of, yes, we have this, but these are the other things we need to have as well. And I know that we've been putting it in a positive frame, but I feel that we've done a good job of raising issues that need to be addressed, right? From the roads to the visas to what you're speaking about. And yes, if you do have any closing remarks that are not positive, please, we are here to learn.
And just one thing before you go. This idea of a dichotomy between positive and negative is the problem.
Wow.
I'm trying to say to you that it is complicated. It's not about positive or negative. There's another category of things which is just wade through it. And you, in the process, construct beauty as you go. There is positive, there is negative, but then there is beauty. And all of that is considered. So again, I said all of this, and then it got back to you. And
I apologize.
The same thing.
You know what? Those are your real final. I leave it there. So thank you so much, Emeka. Othmani, yes. What would you say is the common factor or a unifying factor? It doesn't have to be the same in your travel through the continent, whether positive, negative, nuanced, beautiful, yes, that you'd like to point out.
That's a hard question, but I would say probably the chicken on the bus. I thought it's a Moroccan thing, but I saw it everywhere. I would say actually, speaking about positive and negative, the borders. as like our conversation is about borders. Borders in Africa was quite a challenge, and traveling with an African passport within Africa, that's like one of the biggest challenges on this continent. Traveling with a Moroccan passport, it was quite a challenge, let alone the Nigerian passport. And I got locked in a jail in Malawi just because of that. I crossed Malawi illegally, and because I didn't have the visa was $100. So imagine that was like, I started with $80 my journey. So imagine $100 for one visa. So that's like one of the challenges that's still on this continent, and we hope that's gonna like be better in the future.
Wow, $100.
For $100, got locked in jail.
You're a hero for making it through. Lerato, please, let's hear from you. And I'd also like to hear a little bit about how you managed to navigate as well, whatever it is that you found.
I go with the flow. It really is out of my hands, and the whole point of travel is the adventure of it. You want to experience everything. You simply just want to experience absolutely everything, and I have such a large appetite for that, right? So it was just gobble it up, and keep going. And then the thing that we have in common as a continent is that no one lives on time. It's very problematic. You'll be here, my ticket says we're leaving at 6, and then it will be like 3 hours later, you're asking, hey, are we leaving? Is the train even coming? There was a train from Bamako from Dakar to Bamako that was more than 10 hours late, and that is fine, because what happened is that then the train station turned into a little domestic setup. Someone was dishing out food and taking care of me. Someone went to wash their kids, and we all settled in, and it was just like, oh, look, it'll come when it comes.
It is what it is. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think this has been such a bubbly, engaging conversation. So please give it up for our beautiful panelists, and we hope you enjoyed this.
Thank you, Bimbola.